All right, thanks for tuning in here. My name is Josh Pitts. I'm an IT major at ETSU. And this is my first presentation for Software Engineering 2. So today I'll be talking about risk management within software development. And more specifically, I'll be talking about risk management like within Scrum teams. So first off, why is risk management important? Um, well, for one thing, risks are always going to be present, no matter like how big or small your project is. Like, there's always some sort of risk. Whether it's a personal project you're doing, uh, the risk is your time and maybe a little bit of money, rather than a big project at work and like a Scrum team. You've got lots of money involved and company time and everything. So there's always risk present. And we, as developers and Scrum Masters, product owners, we need to bring as much value as we can to the business we're working for. That's why we're getting paid. Um, and so risks that aren't mitigated and any risk that isn't mitigated will a lot of times become a reality and cost companies lots of money and could even cost them going under especially if it's like a newer startup that doesn't have a lot of money to back up their projects. So for young people first entering the workforce like myself, these risks can often seem overwhelming, but after a while, and after facing like a large amount of risk throughout our careers, um, the risks become more normal, and we get better at managing them. So it's important for everyone, even developers, to be aware of risk. Even us newer developers, to be aware that there are risks and that we need to pay attention to what we're doing, and that um, these risks needs to be managed, reported, and mitigated properly, as we'll get to later in the presentation. So, what kinds of risks are faced when developing software? Uh, a couple of these main risks that I put down here are time management within our teams. Um, it's really important to stay efficient. I'll get more into these in a second. You can have clients change deadlines or add features. You can have unrealistic expectations, like from the client or even from the manager, like product owner or someone within the company. You can also have problems with team collaboration, communication. I'll get to more on that in a second. You can run into issues with having a lack of employees, and even dependencies within tasks and within the project itself that can slow things down if not properly handled. So the process of software development is a complex process and will always pose some sort of risk due to being unpredictable and uncertain in its nature. Um, some of these uncertainties can include things within the business, such as market changes, different technologies, budget, integration, and even currency can cause a risk if your client is, say, in another country and you're looking at having to like transfer like currency. And There's also these more specific risks that I just listed a minute ago that are more related to Scrum teams and I guess more on a lower level, not such a high level. So first, let's talk about the time management. It's important for everyone on the Scrum team to become good at managing their time and learning how to meet deadlines, learning how to implement code reviews into their day, and of course stand-ups. And all these things can like sneak up quick, like your stand-ups and your deadlines where you need to show what you're doing can sneak up quick, and it's important to be on time and have things ready to be presented. So it's important to work diligently on our task and get them done as early as we can. That way, if we run into some problems, we have time to actually deal with them. It's also important to stay in touch with the client and make sure that the product is meeting their criteria. That way, we run into less issues with clients like trying to change deadlines or add features. It's just important to stay in good, like pretty much constant communication with the clients, because poor communication could result in last minute feature adding or a frustrated client. It's also important to note that potential risk is that a client may try to move up a deadline, which could be a big problem. And hopefully, the product owner can talk some sense into the client in these situations. Moving on to the next one, unrealistic expectations. This is more from more on like the Scrum team level. Another risk, or this risk is that more that developers face is when, like, say, the PO or Scrum Master isn't performing Scrum properly, and may try and change time estimations to fit their agenda better, or cram too many hours of work items into a day for a developer. Those are risks that developers can face. Another one, moving on to the next, is poor team communication and collaboration. That can be a big issue for Scrum teams, and that type of risk can often be very detrimental to a company, because it's important for the developers to talk through problems amongst themselves and stuff. I see this at the job that I'm at a lot. Is if someone gets stuck on something for too long, they'll go ask someone that's been there longer and communicate with them and try and get the problem solved. And it really seems to help, and helps to meet deadlines too if you're running into a problem. And another good thing with communication is to have good code reviews. Stay in touch with those coworkers and see if they'll help you by doing a code review on your code, and vice versa. And this is often a bigger issue for remote workers too, because you're not actually there with each other and can do a code review as easy, or having to communicate online like via Zoom or something. But moving on to the next risk you could face is like having a lack of developers. Someone may move on, get another job, or have a kid and be gone for a while. So having a lack of developers can be a huge problem, because obviously it can result in potentially missing a deadline or something. And that, oops, well, the next thing. And that can cost the company a lot of money, both through having to hire someone new if the person had left, and then having to train them, and it can take months, or depending on how experienced the previous person was, it could even take years for that new hire to become as valuable to the company as the person that was there previously, and as much of an asset. So lack of developers can be a big problem. Another one is dependencies. This is one that I've been learning the hard way a little bit this semester, being the product owner of our team, is that dependencies can be a big problem whenever it comes to like progress within a sprint. It's important for the product owner to like when developing and organizing the product backlog, to take note of what tasks are dependent on others to be done before it. That way, later on, when developers are taking those tasks during a stand-up, you can ensure that they're not taking tasks that are dependent on each other, because if one person has a task that's dependent on what the other person has, then they can't, or sometimes they can, but a lot of times like they're very limited or can't do their task until that other task is done, and it can just result in a waste of time and money. So that's it's really important to keep track of what tasks are dependent on others and organize them properly. Um, so moving on to the next here, how should we best manage risk within the Scrum team? Um, First off, it's best for the whole team to sit down and make a list of all the known risks, like together as a team, and brainstorm. I mean, it's important for like the product owner to be thinking about these things himself too, and but it's also really important for the team to sit down together and all brainstorm it together. These risks should include the probability of it occurring, and it should also include what kind of impact that risk could have on the product. Um, like this would include how the risk would affect the business, the solution, like the product itself, or even just say like the risk might affect one specific feature within the product. All those types of things are worth noting and rating the probability and the impact of. And then we categorize the risk. I mean, categorize them on based on whether the risk is like related to more business aspect or related to the solution or the feature. Just categorize them out, keep them organized, helps manage them better. And this practice can be really helpful um, when working in teams with experienced members. And because like the most important uh, part of this brainstorming, managing risk is all these team members collaborating together, and really encouraging them to like speak their mind on what they think of as might being, this might be a risk. Because there's no such thing as dumb question is a phrase, so there's no such thing as like what you might consider to be a dumb idea of what could be a risk. It's better to say it now rather than come across a problem later on. I guess is what I'm trying to say there. And lastly, create strategies. Create strategies on how to manage those risks. It's worthwhile to pay attention to, sorry, um, ask as a team, ask questions like, is it worthwhile to pay attention to that specific threat? Like, is that threat like how much effort is it going to take to manage that risk, like to eliminate the risk pretty much? How much effort is it going to take, and um, how much how much damage can that risk cause to the company? Like, is it really worth that amount of time to eliminate the risk? Um, like some like risk, maybe within a specific feature or something that might take hours of coding or something to take care of, whenever the potential impact on the product itself is really low, and it just take a lot of time and money. It might be best to just skip it, not not bother fixing it, or maybe leave it up to the client. Say, this is going to cost you a certain amount extra to get this fixed. And it's really you know maybe even not that probable, and really isn't going to cause that much damage if X happens. Um, So yeah. So once you made that effort, just refine your list frequently. Um, Otherwise, you could end up with a list that's seems very thorough, but it's really kind of obsolete now. You need to go through and just frequently refine the list and add more risk as the product backlog gets bigger, as the PO is coming up with more things for future sprints. Um, it's important to stay on top of what risk may be maybe there in those certain items or related to those things that that we'll be doing. All right, and that's my overview of risk management. Um, have a good weekend.